Once one person gets through and puts down their stuff, the others quickly follow. Maria, just in the last few minutes, police here in Ottawa have been handing out these flyers to the demonstrators that basically says, well, you got to leave now or you might be arrested. And the police have also expanded what they call the no-go zone. The crew is always talking to the villagers to find out what their biggest needs are, because sometimes those needs change day to day.
A lot of people really came down here on bikes and on foot. They came sprinting down here because they wanted to be a part of this moment. They wanted to say, hey, I was here in downtown Philadelphia when the votes came in here in Pennsylvania that put Joe Biden over the top.
What are we seeing there?
Kalev, this is some of the damage from last week's rioting and the fires that took place. In some cases, entire blocks, as you can see here, were destroyed by the fires. The good news is the last couple of nights here in Minneapolis have been far more quiet. But we did start to see people ascending the Capitol up to the upper level where the windows are once they had breached the perimeter the police set forth for them. There was pepper spray used on the demonstrators as they breached that.
Tell us a little bit more about how this funeral is going to take place.
Isabel, the most important attendant of all, just arrived. George Floyd himself arrived in the casket. You can see back there, the hearse just pulled up. And this is a private funeral for George Floyd, but it certainly doesn't feel that way. It'll be live streamed across the world. And as you can see here, there's media from all over the world that have shown up as well. Not that we're aware of here, David. It's all quiet right now. Of course, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning. The mayor of D.C. told the whole nation, do not come here for this inauguration because of all the security. This is as close as anybody can get. And also, the traffic is terrible here. All the streets, many of the streets are shut down around the Capitol. They're leaving all kinds of things here. And, you know, even though all of these kind of look the same, all the flowers, there's a teddy bear there, the posters, the balloons, and each of these candles, they really do tell a story. Each one tells a story of the individual who thought enough to come up here today and last night to leave this. And that's the message that you're getting from a lot of people here.
There's a DJ out here right now, out here at City Hall, and right next to me is Bill Dalton. You are a Biden supporter. You know, you're a big guy. You've got your pit bull here right next to us, but I see you tearing up. Why?
It's noisy and gusty and dusty. It feels rushed and chaotic, but it's maybe the most beautiful sight in the world.
Thank you. God bless you. Welcome.
For villagers in remote areas, there's a non-stop need for food and shelter.
Our biggest need is a place to sleep. As you can see, we are outside in the cold.
Thousands of tons of donated goods are pouring in from around the world. From tents and baby diapers to a single small box of donated beanie hats from America to the arrival on Tuesday of Japan's first government shipment, 18 tons of donated goods, including a portable field hospital.
Not only personally, but all over the country, everybody who saw those scenes on the TV got their hearts broken, and they all wanted to help.
After a couple of chaotic days in the beginning, Incirlik Air Base has streamlined the collection and distribution process. Every time a helicopter arrives, airmen race to line up and load up the goods. About 200 flights are going out each day, and we're on this one, carrying about 2 tons of goods, headed to 3 remote villages that are tough to reach by car. No seats or seat belts on these packed flights, barely enough room for people and boxes. From the air, we get a view of the earthquake scars in the ground. The fault lines run so close to these villages. As the helicopter descends, the villagers rush out. We talked with one man who actually chose to live here with relatives because his apartment in the city was damaged.
10 minutes before the helicopter arrived, I was praying, and another small quake hit. I immediately went outside. Aftershocks are continuing. We got used to it, but the children are scared.
The crew is always talking to the villagers to find out what their biggest needs are, because sometimes those needs change day to day. Within a few minutes, the villagers have a new lease on life. They wish the crew well and wait for their return. Andy Roesgen, TRT World, Adana. It's the last trek of a journey that for some took weeks and almost 5,000 kilometers, crossing the Rio Grande River from Mexico into the U.S. At times, we hear kids screaming as they're hoisted onto whoever has the strongest and highest shoulders. They link arms for good reason. A 3-year-old child was swept away here last week by the current. Eventually, after reaching the American side, a young man finds a bit of an opening in the barbed wire. He lays down his backpack as a pathway. And once one person gets through and puts down their stuff, the others quickly follow. For some, the very last step is the hardest. And now they smile and cry. It wasn't easy, this mother tearfully tells us. The Border Patrol is hands off. Once they made it across, these people were asking us where they could officially turn themselves in to apply for asylum and just get some water. It's here, a few steps away, under a bridge. On Tuesday, the Border Patrol cut through parts of the barbed wire to allow migrants in.
The border actually starts in the middle of the river, so by the time the migrants encounter our agents, they are already in the U.S. They can't climb up the riverbank, which is fine until they start getting themselves into trouble. If they start getting swept away by the currents, if they start succumbing to the environment, the extreme temperatures and the humidity that you all feel right now, and my men and women see that, they are not going to let somebody die.
A former Border Patrol agent tells us the U.S. is not doing enough to keep migrants out.
They know this is the land of freebies.
What would you say to these people who are crossing right now in front of us?
Look, one thing is, why don't you stay home and fix your country? They'll give you reasons, economic reasons, corruption, socialism, dictatorships. I get that, but at some point or another, and I use America as a model, we pushed back and fought against everything that they're fleeing.
But they all felt the fear in their home countries was greater than the fear of making this trip. And once they do get over, exhausted, some praying to whoever might be listening, they rejoice in at least the possibility of a fresh start. Are you happy?
Happy.
Andy Rosegen, Eagle Pass, Texas. Outside an abandoned hospital in Hatay, a stray dog is just a brief distraction as U.S. soldiers race to build the first American military field hospital to treat earthquake victims. It'll have 100 beds, an operating room, an emergency room, and pediatric and obstetrics services.
It's just powerful. It's people helping people, and to be able to just be part of it is extremely rewarding, and to give back to our allies is just, you almost can't describe it.
It's the medical infrastructure that's lacking in this region right now, especially after the earthquakes of February 20th knocked out service to this regular hospital building next to the field hospital. But still on duty are Turkish medical teams,
who has really been doing an amazing job working on health systems, even in the middle of a tragedy that has impacted their own staff, their own doctors, their own families and communities.
The Turkish government asked the U.S. military to build this field hospital and then turn it over to Turkish personnel to operate. They're calling it a turnkey operation.
We were talking with the Turkish Health Ministry about a need for a place to provide advanced health care. The idea of a field hospital came about in coordination between U.S. and Turkish health ministries.
From the time the Americans first stepped on this empty parking lot, like a blank canvas, to getting these 24 tents erected was just 24 hours. They'll treat their first patients here in less than a week.
I was under the impression that once you put up the tents, that means it's done. No, there's actually a lot more that goes into it with the different medical equipment. They will bring it in, and then we will turn it all over to the Turkish health officials.
Even after the Americans turn it over to the Turkish personnel and train them on the equipment, they'll stay on to help out for a while.
I thank them all so much. They came from another country and they've been working here non-stop.
It's all part of an American commitment, including close to $200 million in aid that the U.S. government says will continue for as long as it takes. Andy Rosegen, TRT World, Hatay. Another noisy night of protesting here in Louisville, Kentucky after that decision from the grand jury regarding Breonna Taylor. As you can see, there's been smoke set off here as these marchers march down the streets. Earlier, they marched along the city's riverfront here in Louisville, which is a highly popular tourist destination throughout the year, hundreds of them.
And I should be able to walk and do what I do without having to worry about the police trying to kill me every time I walk out the house.
Do you look at Breonna and think, that could have been me?
Of course. I think it could be anybody, for real.
Now, these protests tonight have been mainly peaceful. There have been some blocking of traffic, but earlier there was a very tense confrontation between these protesters and members of a white armed militia group called the Oath Keepers, who they say were brought in to protect property. But there was a tense standoff as the two sides went nose to nose with each other. These were armed white militiamen. But in the end, the two sides broke up with no shots fired. What do you think of all this and the confrontation here?
People have the right to protest, keep it peaceful, we'll keep it peaceful, and we're all good.
Now, in the meantime, we should note that the FBI is still investigating this case here in America and still yet might file charges against those officers, including civil rights charges in the Breonna Taylor case. In the meantime, these marches and protests continue on, although it is mainly peaceful for the night. We'll keep watching here in Louisville, Kentucky for Euronews.